This final Cranky is another true story. My name is Emily Schubert once again. I'm going to be assisted by Ian Mansfield, my co-puppeteer. And this piece is about my great aunt. It's a true story about my great aunt. And because she was a documentarian, I need you to know that I made this Cranky in 2022. And there have been some developments since then, and you'll know what I mean once we start the Cranky. But I just need you to know that I know about the developments, and I will continue to follow along, and maybe there'll be a sequel to this Cranky in the future, but we'll just have to see. So, give it up for the unflappable Aunt Pat, or UAP.
When was the last time you gazed up at the night sky for a length of time? Long enough to get that specific feeling, the one that is simultaneously vast and infinitesimally small. Have you ever thought that maybe there is a certain necessity in life to that feeling? Like maybe it is an essential part of a person's growth and becoming? A moment that celebrates being a part of and apart from. There is so much space up there, so much room for possibility. My great aunt Patricia McGowan was the kind of person who had something to say about every subject. Growing up, I knew her as a writer, editor, photographer, painter, and an advocate for the importance of the arts in our family and the world at large. We all called her simply Aunt Pat. Aunt Pat had many interests: travel, history, archaeology, but none quite on the same level as the UFO. In 1951, my aunt met Leonard H. Stringfield while working at the Du Bois Chemical Company in Cincinnati, Ohio. He was to become her boss, and in her words, he was a veritable fountain of intriguing information on the greatest enigma left in the universe, the UFO. Len was director of public relations by day, but in his other time he was involved with multiple civilian research organizations that recorded and collected reports on UFOs and other related phenomena. He helped work on the Condon Report for Project Blue Book, the first ever government study on UFOs. My aunt was Len's editor, typist, and confidant, and for much of the 42.5 years she worked at Du Bois, Len collected UFO reports from all over the Midwest, and she typed them up in a log. She even decided to keep a log of her own.
April 9th, 1975. At 10:55 p.m. last evening, Len Stringfield called me and said it had just happened. A UFO landing reported to him from Hamilton, Ohio, about 20 to 30 miles north of Cincinnati. At that moment, I decided I was going to keep a log of events. If we were in for another flap like late last summer into fall 1973, I was going to be ready, at least with a pen.
My aunt had a unique lens into an interesting world.
My adventure with the UFO began back in the early 50s. I shared some of Len's experiences from the very early days of his research. For instance, I was talking to him in his office on a nice sunny day in '52 when a burly guy was brought into the office. Tucked under his arm was a mason jar with angel hair twisted around a twig. It was a crude UFO trace evidence carrier, if you ask me. This man lived near Greater Cincinnati Airport, and a high-flying disc-shaped object jettisoned this material all over his wife's wash line. His quick thinking with the jar gave me my first view of the substance that would go into UFO language as angel hair, a substance still unknown to our scientists. I remember, too, how quickly it dissolved in the air when the lid was removed.
Over the years, the subject of UFOs and the conversation around the potential of extraterrestrial life has remained a taboo topic in many circles, and my aunt felt it in her day-to-day life.
My friends, even my closest, are unaware of these incidents, nor do I gossip about them. Some would hold my conversation in disbelief, and some would be frightened of what I'd relate. They might even question my belief in the Creator, or even worse, my sanity. But a universal God, Creator, or whatever other name one prefers calling them is more real to me now than ever before because of what I learned, little though it is.
She had questions.
Now, if I believe God created the universe, why shouldn't I also believe He created life in myriad other galaxies, possibly in a variety of forms, and I'm just one of them?
And concerns.
The point is, normal people are experiencing unnormal things, and they want and should know what is happening. They should have someone to turn to without that individual cracking up with laughter.
And best of all, there are so many stories.
May 21st, 1975. One of Leonard's wife's friends told her about a very scary incident that occurred in their own home. The wife was sitting up reading. Their son had just left the house, and her husband had retired already. The husband has a heart condition, wears a pacemaker, and needs a lot of rest. The wife suddenly became aware of a noise. It sounded like a high-pitched chant. The drapes were drawn across the living room window so she couldn't see out. She started for the window but became very uneasy and didn't open the drapes. The chant was subsiding, as if whatever it was receding, and her husband walked into the room. He had been awakened in great discomfort, commenting that he thought there was something wrong with his pacemaker. It seemed erratic. The next day, the wife walked around the house to that particular window and found strange tracks on the ground. May 27, 1975. The wife set it up so Len could visit and see the tracks in the lawn outside the house. It was a semicircular track formed by lush green grass, a definite lusher green than the surrounding lawn. He noted how much taller and thicker the grass grew in the track, and even more odd, the ground looked as if it were raised or swollen. The speeded up growth could be a product of radiation. The last important thing was that the semicircle did not begin in the driveway into the lawn or from the street onto the lawn. It started in the middle of the lawn leading to that window. Whatever the unknown thing was that made it, it was either placed there or descended and landed airily. June 25th, 1975. Len received a letter from a truck driver for a Michigan company who had an incident back in 1970, somewhere midway up the peninsula. He was returning from the East Coast in the winter months when, during the night in a blinding snowstorm, his wipers started icing badly. He pulled over, noting it was around midnight, to clear the truck's windshield wipers of ice. Without warning, he and the truck were enveloped in a cone of green light from overhead. Outside the light, he could see the snow falling. Inside the light, the truck was snow-free and he was warm, although it was terribly cold outside. Just as suddenly, the light was withdrawn, and to his amazement, he was about 20 feet away from the truck. He didn't remember walking away, nor were there any footprints in the snow indicating that he had. He got back into the truck, and when he went to start it up, he noticed the temperature gauge registering 0. He thought, "This is odd. I was only out there about 5 minutes, and it takes a diesel engine approximately 3 hours to cool off." And at that, he glanced at his watch. To his astonishment, the hand stood at 5 o'clock. During the interval inside the green light cone, he had lost 5 hours. He said he saw no craft, only the green light.
In my aunt's community of UFO enthusiasts, theories abound, from the connection of UFOs to Bigfoot to government disinformation campaigns, and my aunt followed along, clipping every newspaper article, questioning it all.
January 7th, 1976. It has been hinted that there are 2 forces at war in the Pentagon, one against the release of information and the other for such a release. The cover-up allegedly almost blew, but then Watergate came along. Now the military anti-info group feels the public would be completely demoralized if they learn they've been conned all these years. I disagree, since over half of the American public believe UFOs are real. But what would happen should a giant alien spacecraft land in a shopping center parking lot on a crowded Saturday afternoon? It could happen just that way.
In all of her years of researching and looking up at the sky, my aunt never once experienced a UFO sighting herself, but nevertheless she continued to believe. And she is not alone. The last 2 years have brought the UFO back into the spotlight. On June 25, 2021, the U.S. government released an unclassified report on 144 cases of unidentified aerial phenomenon. The investigators were only able to explain one sighting. The report from the Office of National Intelligence concludes that these unidentified objects clearly pose a risk to flight and are a national security threat to the U.S. In May of 2022, Congress held the first public hearing on UFOs in more than 50 years. Pentagon officials noted the competing needs for transparency and secrecy. The military's UFO database now includes 400 reported incidents, but the organization maintains that there is no evidence yet that connects UAPs to extraterrestrial life. In October of 2022, NASA announced a group of 16 researchers who will spend the next 9 months studying unidentified aerial phenomena that will lead to a report. Following that announcement, MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, the longest-serving organization of its kind, an organization of which my great-aunt Pat was a member, issued a statement declaring that MUFON stands ready to assist NASA in any capacity. MUFON is a civilian science organization dedicated to the scientific study of UFOs in order to benefit humanity. At this moment, 65% of people in the United States believe in intelligent life beyond Earth. Since the mid-20th century, there have been 4 million reports of alien abduction in the United States alone. Is it the want to believe in something more? Something greater than this? Something so seemingly beyond us that we feel a little bit of weight lift up off our shoulders? If there is other life, perhaps we are even less alone. If there is other life, maybe that grief we are feeling as our planet and species faces climate apocalypse can shift a little? Maybe there are allies out there, somewhere. And maybe that could mean that we are not only universally connected, but intergalactically connected. Cosmic connections hereto only dreamed of. The thing that made my Aunt Pat so special was not only how she truly believed in life beyond Earth, but how she truly believed in people. She believed in my mother as she found her way in the world and started her own business. And she believed in me, growing up, encouraging my creative pursuits and expression. It was the kind of belief that is palpable. It is a powerful thing to feel someone believe in you, and I felt it every time I was around her. I never got to talk to my Aunt Pat in person about her interest in the UFO. But even though I never got to talk to her, she left behind these logs for generations of future McGowans to ponder. And while I'm pondering, I think the only fitting way to send off my aunt is to give her the UFO sighting for which she was always looking to the sky.